Hello guys, how are you all doing today? Welcome back again to my YouTube channel. So on top of my table, I have a detailed illustration of how a six-piece skirt looks like. Now in this particular tutorial, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how to draft out the pattern for a six-piece skirt. It is very simple. If this is what you're interested in learning, please keep on watching. So guys, six-piece skirt simply means six panel skirt, okay? So what that means is this is being divided into six pieces. So for the front, we are going to have three panels, and then for the back, we are going to have three panels, okay? Although for the back, we have a zipper demarcation right there, so it looks as if it is being divided into one, two, three, four. But no, okay? We have three panels there apart from the zipper demarcation, okay? So let me just number it so you guys can understand what I'm trying to explain. So this is the front, and we have one, two, the middle is number two, and we have the other side to be number three. Now going to the back, we have one, two, and three. Now looking at the back, you would notice I have a straight line which indicates the zipper allowance. Now these are the measurements you are going to be needing if you have to draft out a six-piece skirt. You are going to be needing your waist measurements, your hip measurements, and then the length of the skirt. The wideness of the length is for you to determine. So when we get to that part, you will understand what I mean by that. So with this being explained, we are going to start drafting this out, okay? So I'm going to, from the top of my paper, come down by 1 inch and then make a horizontal line just like this. Now after this line, I'm going to place my tape on this line and then mark down to the hip point 9, and then still leaving my tape like that. I'm going to mark down to the knee length 17 inches. I'm going to mark, and then down to the length of the skirt. So for the length, I'm going to use 44 plus my turning allowance. So I'm going to make it 45 inches. So I'm going to remove my tape now and make a horizontal line on them. Now that we have our horizontal line, I'm going to label it. We have the waist, we have the hip, we have the knee, and then we have the length. So now guys, after this, we have to divide the highest measurement that we have on our body, which is the hip circumference. So my hip circumference is 44 inches. Now, because we are making a 6-panel skirt, I'm going to divide this 44 by 6, okay? Now, after dividing this 44 by 6, I'm going to further divide it by 2 again because we are cutting on fold. My paper is being folded into 2, and you guys, whatever it is I drafted out on this pattern is exactly the same way you should draft it out if you are cutting on fabric, okay? Now 44 divided by 2, we have 7.3. Now we are going to further divide it by 2 again because we are cutting on folds. Like I said, my paper is being folded into 2. So if we are cutting out, remember what we are trying to cut out now is the center panel, okay? So now I'm going to place this 3.6 on the waistline, on the hip line, and then moving over to the knee length, I'm going to reduce the knee length by 0.5 inches, okay? So now I'm going to go ahead and on the waistline, input 3.6, and then on the hip, I'm going to input 3.6, okay? But there is this thing I usually do on the hip. If you want that kind of curvy effect right at the center, I have to go out more by half an inch, okay? So that is what I'm going to use. So here and here is not going to be straight. I'm going to add up half an inch to this part so that I'll have that kind of curvy effect right at the center. So I'm going to add up half an inch right there. And then on the knee, I'm going to reduce 0.5 inch, okay? So remember on the waistline, I have 3.6. Here I have 3.0. 6 plus half an inch, and here I'm going to reduce half an inch. So I'm going to input 3.1. So now I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler to connect this point, and this point together. Now I'm going to go down to the length, and the next thing I want to do is mark out how wide I want the front panel to look. Okay, so I'm going to make use of 10 inches for the front. So from here, I'm going to place my tape on the center front and mark 10. Okay, so this means that if I open this up, remember it's on fold. If I open it up, it's going to be 20 inches. Okay, so I'm going to mark, and what I'm going to do next is use my tape. I use my ruler and connect from here down to this point. Okay, now next thing I want to do is go ahead and add up half an inch for the sewing allowance. Okay, so I'm going to, from the waistline, input half. Now what I'm going to do next is, because I don't want this down part to be that pointy, okay, so I'm going to come up by 1.5 inches from this part, and then I'm going to connect it to the middle of this part. Okay, so I'm going to divide it into two and then mark out the middle and connect like this. So now you can see what we have. I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. And now coming over to the waist, I'm going to input half an inch for joining the waistband to the skirt. So guys, here we have the center panel. Now let me open it up so that you guys can see. See, this is what it looks like. Can you see? So I'm going to fold it back again so that we cut out the center back. So guys, for the back, I've brought in another pattern paper, and you can see I've equally placed the front panel. I also use my pins to hold it down. And before I placed in the front panel, I left about 8 inches. Okay, this depends on how wide you want the tail of the back to look. Now let's go into this so you understand what I'm trying to explain. Okay, now first of all, what I'm going to do is mark out important lines on the hip points. I'm going to come out by half an inch because I want to add a little bit of butt. I would simply connect it back to the waistline and then down to the knee. Now after this, I will now go ahead and insert my zipper allowance. So for the zip allowance, I'll be making use of 1.5 inches. So I'll add 1.5 inches to the waist, 1.5 inches to the hip, and then 1.5 inches to the knee. I'm going to now connect these points together. And then for the wideness of my tail, for the back, I'm going to make use of 5 inches. And then I'll simply connect from here to these points. And now coming over to this part, I'm going to come up by 1.5 inches and then connect it back to this point. And then I'll go ahead and cut it out. Now guys, you can see we have the front and the back center panel. So we are going to remove our pins now and then use the center panel again to cut out the side panel. So I'm simply going to level this, the zipper allowance, so that I won't get myself confused. You can equally notch the knee points, the hip points. I'm going to bring in the center of the front again so that we can cut the side panels. Now, the side panel is going to be 4 pieces, okay? Now, I'm going to cut, because we are cutting on pattern, I'm going to cut just one. But if I want to transfer this to fabric, I'm going to use this one pattern to cut out the remaining 3. I don't know if you get me. I'm cutting out one now. I'm going to use the remaining pattern paper to cut out 3 pieces. This means that if I'm cutting on fabric, I'm going to cut out 4 pieces for the side panel. This is the center of the front. Let me turn it so you guys can see. This is the center front. So, and then this is my fresh pattern paper. Now, if I want to place it, I'm going to place like this. And then I'm going to ensure that the end of this, my front panel, aligns with this by the side. Can you see what I'm doing? And then I'm going to pin it up. You see? I'm going to pin it up. So I've pinned this part. I'm going to also pin the upper part. So now that I've finished pinning it, I'm going to cut out this part, okay? I'll cut it down to this part. So now after that, I'm going to remove my pins. So you can see what we have. Now what I'm going to do next is, you see the center front? I'm going to turn it like this. And then I'm going to ensure that I have the knee points aligning with the knee points of the center front like this. Okay. And next thing I want to do is go ahead and mark out all my lines. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and divide my waist circumference by 4. So whatever it is I have, I'm going to mark it out and input my sewing allowance, okay? So I'm going to make use of 2 inches for my sewing allowance. Now I'm going to divide. my waist, which is 38 inches, divided by 4, I'm going to have 9.5 inches. So I'm going to mark 9.5. And then I'm going to add 2 inches for my sewing allowance. Now on the hip point, I'm going to divide my hip circumference by 4. 44 divided by 4, I'm going to have 11, and then 2 inches for sewing allowance. I'm going to mark. Now on the knee, I'm going to minus 2 inches from the hip measurement, which is going to give me 42 inches, and then divide it by 4. So 42 divided by 4, I'm going to have 10.5 inches plus 2 inches for my sewing allowance. So you guys, you can see what I have right there. So I'm going to connect these points together. So you can see our shape. Now to the down part, which is the hemline, I'm now going to, remember what I have here was 10, okay? So now what I'm going to do is, this is the hem of the side panel, you can see. So what I'm going to do is add 7 to 8 inches to these 10 inches, and I'm going to have 18 inches. So from this point, I'm going to mark out 18 inches. And now I'm going to connect from here down to this hemline. And then after connecting it, next thing I want to do is go up by 1.5 inches and connect it to the middle of this side pattern. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut it. So guys, here is the side panel. I'm now going to label it the side panel, okay? And I'm equally going to notch these parts, okay? So that we know that I'm joining these parts to the center front and the center back, okay? Do you understand? So you have to notch to indicate that you are joining this to the two center pieces, okay? Now this is the side piece. So guys, you can see we are done with this, and we have the center front, and here is the center back, okay? Now if I'm cutting on fabric, please remember that this center back, I'm going to have my fabric unfold and cut it. So it's going to be 2 pieces, and then to the side panel, I'm going to cut out 4 pieces of it, okay? So guys, I hope you find this tutorial helpful. Please don't forget to share this video if you do, and subscribe if you haven't done yet. I'll see you guys in my next tutorial. Bye.